So tonight, let's talk about the calendars. I'm interested to know which ones you all use for your feast. If you want to put that in the chat, I'd just like to see that. And then I'll have a record of it if you put it in there. So if you've got chat available, I'd like to know what calendar you use. I'm not trying to convince anybody tonight or be evangelical about it. I just want to know. But one thing that we want to do is go through the scheme for making your own 364-day calendar and why you don't have to intercalate it. Yeah, that's right. Same as mine. Norman and I have worked on this together for a number of years, and here he is. And we didn't always agree. A couple people here. Wow, just like the old days when you would get 20 people in these meetings. Hello, Blaze.
Hey, Jackson. I don't know if it's possible, but being able to do as we do this on this platform, but then somehow go with YouTube Live sometime, and people see YouTube Live with calendar talk. Oh my!
No, seriously, you're right.
I mean, you'll have 1,000 people drop in when it comes to calendar talk on a live.
That's
stream.
a great idea. Well, let's do it again next week. The thing about YouTube Live is you can't see who you're talking to, or you can't actually talk to anyone. I don't think you can.
Yes, there's the chat for it. And you have a moderator, someone who just sits and watches the chat and answers questions for people. Parable of the Vineyard does it all the time. There will be 4,000 people live on Friday night deal. And it's just live chat. Everybody saying Shabbat Shalom, asking questions. And then there's moderators that kind of handle a lot of the questions, or they'll take the important ones, write them down, and then send them to Adam. And then Adam will address them before the show's over.
That's incredible how he has built a ministry up that's primarily just reading scripture.
Yeah. Yeah. They just get on, they'll pick up a different apocryphal book or the 12 patriarchs, and they'll just read it forever, however many weeks it takes them to dissect verse by verse and try to connect them, whether it be in our canon or anywhere else in the Dead Sea Scrolls, to the best of their knowledge anyway.
Right. Let's see. What happened to Donald? Donald disappeared. Okay. Welcome, Norman.
I'm here, sorry.
There he is. You say that the problem you have is that other people don't use that calendar. You can't find anybody to do it with. Yes, I know about that. Maybe you have to be evangelical about that, and if you can show them where it comes from and how it works. Did I send you that calendar pack?
Yes, I'm going through it now.
Okay.
It's good.
So if you want a calendar pack that will give you the words to say to explain why the 364-day calendar is probably the earliest calendar we have, and you can convince people because it is an actual temple calendar that was used for decades or hundreds of years to set the feasts in Israel. So as far as we know, then you're going to have to be able to back up your stuff. And it was difficult for me, but finally it came easy once we got over the hurdles. And here's Norman. Hi, Norman.
Hello.
Hey. I hope you're here to do a little talking tonight.
Well, look, things haven't been going too well for me this past few months. the building I'm living in is scheduled for demolition, and I have to move. With the result that trying to find something now here in Toronto is there is accommodation, but the rent has skyrocketed.
Oh, I'll bet.
And obviously I'm part-time, I'm not earning the kind of money I used to. So it's been quite stressful for me trying to find a place. I've been declined one building so far. They don't give you a reason. They just say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, you've been declined. So with the result that I haven't been able to concentrate on this topic for tonight. My notes are all over the place, but I will eventually put it all together and throw it back at you once I'm settled again. And hopefully I have to be out by end of November, and hopefully I've found something by then, and I should be able to relax and concentrate on this. But I'll listen in, and I might throw in a few words here and there.
Yes, that's important. You can kind of be a deal breaker, especially if we get in some really heated arguments.
Yes.
But let's see, what was I going to say to you? I just forgot it. Well, it'll come back to me. So let's go over now to the 364-day calendar, and let's just run through how to do it. And then Norm and I probably got to get an argument about intercalation. But I tried to make it as simple as possible. Let me get on a share screen. In a way, it's so simple that it gets past you, especially not having to intercalate it, or at least not what I call intercalation. This calendar is called the Enoch calendar by most people, but actually there's no calendar in Enoch. There are observations, but the calendar comes from another sector. Using those observations, I've seen this also called the Zadokite calendar, the Old Temple calendar, the Norman Gray calendar, the solar calendar. Maybe you have to leave that place, Norman, because of your reputation for trying to change the calendar. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
And
no, everybody has to get out. The building's coming down.
Okay.
They're putting a new high rise up.
In this calendar, I have a big question for you all that I hope you can answer for me.
Can I say something before you start?
You can break in anytime.
At the end, let's pray for Norman for a place to be found. Reasonable cost.
Do you want to do that
Thank you very
now?
much. I appreciate it. Yep.
Let's do it now.
Well, we can.
Sure. Go right ahead.
All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord be gracious and merciful unto you. May the Lord show you the way to the place where you need to be at a reasonable price and better than what you had before. In the mighty name of Jesus, we ask this for Norman. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And that's all it takes right there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe you'll end up down here, Norman. We have to agree that Sunday is the first day of the week, first of all. That seems to, even the scholars say, it goes back to time immemorial. And some people have said, yeah, well, there have been 10 days in the week and so forth, but there have been peculiar people who kept a 7-day week from the very start. One of the reasons I was convinced about Sunday, Saturday being the Sabbath, because if you compare all these languages, even if the language is obscure or gone, you see some part of Sabbath in there, in just about all, at least the European countries. So Sabbath, Shabbat, it's pretty convincing when you go back to the languages. So if we're agreed that Sunday's the first day of the week, we go to the first day of the week after the spring equinox, which has been lately on or around March 20th. And there's no exception to this. If you have an equinox even on a Tuesday, and that's happened a few times, you still got to go to the first Sunday after the equinox. You have to transverse 5 days there before you can start the count of your days. So we go to the equinox, and then we go to the first Sunday after the equinox. And that isn't the first day of the year. That's the first day of the week. The first day of the year is on the 4th day after the equinox. So if you can just remember that Sunday, you go to the Sunday after the equinox and then to the Wednesday after that. That's as easy as pie to remember if you want to make your own calendar. So the first day that we count as being part of the festival year, not the secular year, that's always going to be Sunday. But the festival year starts on Wednesday. The reason for that is, at least what I've read, is because to these people that use this calendar, Pentecost was on a Wednesday, and that was their favorite or most important holiday, was Pentecost. So that's the beginning of the festival year. Then you map out your 4 quarters for the year. Each quarter made up of 3 months, not much different than we use now. A first month of 30 days, a second month of 30 days, a third month of 31 days. And you map that out for your 4 quarters. So each quarter is going to have 91 days. And when you have that done, you go to Leviticus 23, starting on that first Wednesday, and count them off. So you're going to have a Pesach on a Wednesday. You're going to have Tabernacles start on a Wednesday. And you're going to end up with your traditional Pentecost on a Sunday, a first day. The difficult part of this, if you map out your own, is the counting. And time after time I've done this, and I have messed up my counting. So you got to double check that it's not messed up. I'll get out of here. Now, here's my question. This is a very simple question, but to me, it's tantamount to this whole scheme. And that is, how many days is it between the spring equinox of one year and the spring equinox of the next year? Almost seems too simple. Who can answer that for me? I mean, exactly the days and the number of partial days. I've looked on the internet, can't find it.
$365.2422.
Okay, thank you. Who did that?
Mark.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much, because that helps to validate this scheme of calendar. Because concerning catching up with the sun, the way I understand it, you never have to catch up with the sun, because you're figuring your calendar from the equinox each year. Now you
I
say,
agree with that.
Huh?
I agree with that totally. I agree with that totally. But the problem is, you have 1.2422 days that throws your moon cycle such that someday, one of the feasts, you're going to have a new moon festival.
They didn't do that festival.
Huh?
That festival was not done by the Zadokite people.
Correct. Not done.
Yeah. They didn't do Hanukkah either. But
Well, they didn't do any of those. They only did what was originally done in the Torah.
yes, exactly. They didn't do a new moon festival. And yes, it won't work out that way. In Enoch, the observations are both for solar and lunar, but as every scholar that you'll ever read will tell you, the lunar was never used for calculating feasts. It was probably only given just to show how the moon works during that particular part of time. But they,
If I may say,
please,
it was used to corroborate twice a year, twice in the 6th year, they followed the moon system to see if the dates were falling in line. I don't know what the correct word for that is, but it was used for correcting to make sure everything was correct.
somebody sent me a question about that, which I couldn't answer, and that is to say that because of what the moon observations, there would have to be an extra week tagged on every 6 or 7 years. I can't see that. Maybe I'm too blind here.
Like, unfortunately, I've got all the answers. I've got them. But don't ask me where they are right now, Jackson.
Okay.
I'll send them to you because, like I said, my mind has been somewhere else.
Well, keep that one in mind
Absolutely.
next time you think about it.
Yep.
But if they didn't use the lunar at all, and you just use the calculation I just gave you, which is found primarily in the scrolls, and I think it's spelled out pretty much in Jubilees too, then you're not going to have trouble. You're not going to have to put any extra days in, but you've got to remember one important thing. You start your year through the calculation on Wednesday, but you don't end the year. When the 7th month is over and your feasts are done that you set up, chances are the people went back on the secular calendar. And in the time of Joshua, the secular calendar, or the Sadducean calendar, was the Lunar-solar calendar.
Right.
And that was also the market calendar for the Greek Empire. So we had two calendars going at that time. We can say that the Sadducean calendar would have had to be in the secular calendar because markets were set up for that. And I understand the reason for them using the Lunar-solar calendar is so the market days would match up with these empires that they were trading with. And then there's a third calendar that was used at that time too. And that was a Pharisee calendar. It was like not unlike the observation calendar of today. You wait to the next observable sliver of the moon after the green ears of barley pop up. And that's how you calculate it from there.
It's the Karaites.
What is that?
It's the Karaites. They use that method.
Karaites, right. This was also the market calendar for the Parthian Empire. And the ones that used this calendar were the Pharisees. They used that because if you look back into the history again, the Pharisees came out of Parthia and brought these Zoroastrian beliefs that we now believe in Christianity with them. And there was a time in the 1st century BC when the Pharisees took over not only the temple, but the entire government of Israel. That was in the time, if you want to know, of Salome Alexandra. I'm thinking it was about 90 BC. And Alexander Jannaeus was the king. He was firmly behind the Sadducees. And when he died, his wife, Alexandra, went completely over to the Pharisees because she was from a Pharisaic family. So the Pharisees came in and they took care of more Zadokites, murdered them, had murdered Sadducean priests, and took over the calendar too for a time.
Right.
So we imagine that the Pharisees of the first century AD continued to keep that observation calendar. Those are the three main calendars. Now people ask me, how obscure of literature did you have to get into to find that out? I found this out in the Jewish dictionary. It was that simple of a thing. Now
You'll also find that in the Talmud here and there.
yes, somebody told me that too.
Yes.
Okay. The way I went about this, as opposed to using literature and texts, I was working a calendar with Joseph Konichowski. Maybe some of you know him. He and I used to work together, the Ramic, he calls himself. We were working together on the calendar, and he said, I'm going to get into these texts, Jubilees and Enoch, and I'm going to dig through texts until I can find it.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
I said, I've got another way to try this. I am going to put myself in the place of Yahshua and try to imagine what calendar he must have used, because obviously he got in some garbled trouble in the New Testament due to his Sabbath keeping. Now, of course, that'd be lost on second century translators and so forth. But you remember he was rubbing corn in his hands and ridiculous things like that. And he was accused of being a blasphemer because he broke the Sabbath. It occurs to me that maybe he had a different Sabbath than them, because the Lunar-solar calendar, doesn't that use the moon to set Sabbaths once a quarter?
No.
Tell me
No.
how it works.
No. That is the Sabbath, the new moon Sabbaths. That's sort of popped up recently over the past few years, but that's been totally debunked.
Okay. All right. I understood that in the first century, they were using some device to every quarter change the Sabbath and put it on another day. I know the lunisolars today have that. One quarter. Some of them do it by quarter. Some of them do it by month. I wonder, would it be in the plan of Yahweh or in the great perfection of the universe that Enoch talks about to deny a working person's living? Who can get a job when you got a Sabbath one day in a quarter or one day in a month, and then the next month it splits over to another day, like Wednesday?
Yes. My friend in Montreal, he follows a scheme similar to that. And I think, I can't remember now, but I think every year it changes. So I think this year it falls on a Monday, or I don't know, it moves.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yes, it is. It seems to me like if the order of the universe has some perfection, it would affect humankind to allow us to go about our customs in a way that we could handle. But if you had to, especially every month, change the Sabbath to another time, how can you do that? It just seems impossible. So I ask you if you would go out on the chat and write down which calendar you used right now. I know a couple of you weren't here. Just for my own value, just for my own use.
Where's the chat? There.
And so that is the presentation in regards to how to put that 364-day calendar together. You will get a lot of more information if you want this calendar pack or you want to give it to somebody. There are 3 or 4 essays in here by top Essene Hebrew scholars that explain more about this, that you can read through and ferret them out. The 364-day Enoch solar calendar. Yes, exactly. Now let's see. I used the observation calendar for years because I didn't know any better. However, that it's pretty clear that that was a calculated calendar, and I think only goes back to Ramban, and if not there, to Hillel, post-temple period. So when I learned that, that's when I started wanting to find the real calendar. And to go into a Jewish dictionary and see it written there, and that in the 1st century, there were at least 3 calendars used, well, that changed my mind. I thought, if the Jews who use a calculated calendar are going to admit to this, then why haven't they gone back to the old ways? Ramban's calculated start date was a dark moon. And aren't there some groups that use a full moon?
Very few that I've come across, but certainly the dark moon. My previous association did what we call the conjunction. Yeah.
Well, my friend here uses the full moon.
Oh.
That is Commander Lee.
Oh.
And I never heard of that before. But
I
he
have
said
come across it, but not far and few between.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, now what I'm going to do is look on this chat, and we'll see who needs evangelizing. Mississippi, the Norman Gray's version. Here's a lunar solar. That's Mark. Yeah, I knew that you were there. Donald, solar calendar. Norman Gray, lunisolar.
No.
No. That's almost an insult after all the work you've done on the calendar. And Blaze Sproul is following the silver. There's a sliver, I mean, the sliver moon.
Crescent, we call it.
Yeah, crescent, the sliver. Ritter, the 364-day Enoch solar calendar. It seems like that people using other calendars without even wanting to study and find out which is the correct one would want to change when they found out. I've had so many swear to me that the lunar solar calendar was the one because that was the one that was going in Jesus' day. Well, yes, it was, but 175 years before that, the Zadokites.
I'm going to make a comment.
Yeah, please.
Okay, the reason I go to lunar solar is because there's several events that were recorded that follow that system. One of those is, of course, is Jesus' crucifixion. Okay, he came at an appointed time when there was Abib 10th was on the first day of the week, and Abib 17th was on the first day of the week. All right, that's the Feast of First Fruits. That was Abib 10. Huh?
Can you go a little farther with that?
Well, when the triumphant entry, when he came into Jerusalem, he had to be the Paschal Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
When he walked into Jerusalem, the triumphant entry, and that was on the first day of the week. Gospels say that bar none.
Okay.
All right. John records that on the 6 days prior to Passover, they went to Bethany. to Lazarus' house, Martha and Mary, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you read John closely, you will understand that that had to be the Friday before the Sabbath. So therefore, when they ate dinner that night, that was the Sabbath dinner. They could not go any further and had to stay at that house that day.
You mean
The
the
next day,
Erev dinner? The Erev dinner on like Friday night?
yeah,
Okay.
all right.
When
So
was
it
the
had-
rising then?
So from Bethany to Jerusalem is more than a Sabbath day walk.
You sure about
So he
that?
had to stay in Bethany, and that evening when the sun set, he started walking toward Jerusalem, and they stayed at the night wherever they did. Then that following morning, on the first day of the week, he walked into Jerusalem. That's a bib tent. And once you figure that out, then from that point on, Jesus was crucified on the Wednesday, and had to be because it was a Sunday. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then you had, I say 3 Sabbaths in a row, but people get all bent over the shape about the Passover and unleavened bread not being Sabbath, they're Sabbathon or whatever, or holy convocations.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're higher Sabbaths than the others. Right.
Shabbaton only means Sabbath. It's just plural for Shabbat.
Well, my understanding is Passover and unleavened bread are both high Sabbaths. From Exodus 12 and Leviticus 23.
Passover?
So you had 3 Sabbaths in a row. So that's why he talks about the 3 days and 3 nights in the grave.
I didn't understand Passover as being anything more than a preparation day.
Right.
No, the Passover,
Yeah.
the lamb is crucified on the Wednesday, the 13th, not on the 14th, between the 15th.
Okay, go through those days one more
If
time.
you don't understand that from the feast, then you've blown it from the get-go.
Well, I have studied this before, and I know that Wednesday,
I know.
the crucifixion was on Wednesday, and I'm certainly not criticizing you for anything. That's why I want to hear from you. What is your reasoning here? And so where can I find information like that? Because what I was told is the only way it worked out was on the solar calendar.
I'm not doing it. I'm just going by a bib tent and the dates of the week.
Okay.
Okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm not saying whether it's the solar calendar or whatever, everything else. But Jesus came at an appointed time and was crucified. That day is set in stone. That day was April 5th, 30 AD, and you can do it by moon calculations.
All right, let me, I want to write that down on my notes. Go ahead.
But a bib tent had to be the first day of the week, the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And from that point on, once you understand that, then the rest of it falls out.
All right. Oh, it's
Then
the
Thursday
Wednesday.
would be Passover, Friday would be unleavened bread, and then Saturday is the regular Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath.
Wednesday would be Passover, you say?
No, Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
Now you got to remember that includes 6 hours previous the other night too,
Yeah.
the other day. Because it's evening, morning, 6 times in Genesis. The day always started at sundown. So between the 13th and the 14th is when that evening of the 14th would have been Thursday evening. Jesus is already in the grave.
What day does he
Preparation
rise?
day is the 13th. Huh?
What day does he arise? In that way of understanding. On the Shabbat?
At the end of the Shabbat.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
It would have been on Saturday evening, which then turns to Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exact hour because nobody was there to witness it except the Roman guards who got paid off. So we never heard exactly when the stone was rolled away.
Well, see, there's a mistranslation in there too. And from that mistranslation, they get the idea that he rose on a Sunday. But what it actually says is coming toward the first day of the week. And-
Correct.
Okay,
And Sunday.
yeah.
I agree with you on that.
So we've got 3 full days and nights there.
Yes.
Okay.
One category.
Now, I believe that there was 1 year between 30 and 33 that these calendars all came into conjunction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which year was that? 31?
Well, because it would be, yeah, every 3 years it would kind of come back because of the 10 days too short. So they, yes, like every 3 years it comes back around and matches up.
Okay, so we're talking about what I remember is the 31 AD, but maybe it was 33. Nobody knows right now, I guess. Okay, I understood in my earlier studies that there was 1 year where they fell into conjunction one with the other, and that was very unusual for it to match up so perfectly, and that was when this whole triumphant entry through the resurrection happened. It's the same for everybody. Norman, have you heard of that?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Put that down as number 2 if you ever get back into this. To look
Oh,
it
yes,
up.
I will. There's a few things that I'm picking up already, and I thought, yeah.
Let's hear them. We still have a few minutes.
I have a question. I'm sure, I mean, Jackson and Norman, I know that you all are familiar with Jubilee 6. Mark, are you familiar with Jubilee 6 at all?
Enlighten me.
Oh, just the chapter of Jubilee 6. The command and how it's being broken down with the hours to observe.
Can you read that for us? You have it
yeah.
somewhere around?
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a second.
Go ahead.
Y'all converse with each other for a second.
It would be good just to have it on this recording because, of course, this is going up someplace. Donald, you're looking good. Have you been?
I
over
make an
to
objection to
Donald's?
you, Jubilee 6,
Okay,
because I don't think Jubilees is a valid book.
all right.
Well, okay, then that answers my question then.
No,
If you read it anyway.
It is fully valid, and in my document, when I get to it, I'll show you why historically it was Enoch and the Book of Jubilees and other books fully, but it was cut out by the Jewish scribes because they didn't know
Pharisees.
what it was saying.
And so many were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So many copies of each were found, weren't they?
Exactly.
Anything apocalyptic or anything that had to do with a solar month was cut out by the Pharisees
Yes.
when they came in.
Right.
The solar calendar was out when the Sadducees took over in about 171 BC. Then when the Pharisees took over for a short time, it changed again to the Pharisaical calendar. Then when they got Sadducees back in office, then it changed back yet again. And so all the Zadokites, we're talking about people like Nazarenes, Essenes, Ebionites, Elcassites, Masbuthians, and several other of these Essene-like groups. What are you smiling about? Masbuthians?
You and the Essenes. There's no Essenes.
I know, I agree.
Yeah. But
You hear? I agree, but see, that's what we know these people by today.
Yes, but then you know my argument with that.
Well, we should call them Enochians, I guess.
All right, so
You know what they call themselves? Hasidim.
Yes.
All right.
Hasidim.
Sorry, guys, but I got it up, and
Okay.
pardon me, it is the Sefer translation, just what I had quick access on my phone.
Then you know that the word moon's not in there.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
So I will be starting Yovelim chapter 6, verse 30. This is pretty much what we need to hit on in this part of the conversation, what I was referring to anyway. All right. And all the days of the commandment will be 250 weeks of days, and these will make the entire year complete. Thus it is graven and ordained on the heavenly tablets. And there is no neglecting this commandment for a single year or from year to year. And the command you, the children of Israel, that they observe the years according to this reckoning 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year. They will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts, for everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feasts. But if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and years will be dislodged from this order. And they will disturb the seasons, and the years will be dislodged, and they will neglect their ordinances. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the paths of years, and will forget the heads of the months and seasons and Shavuot, and they will go wrong as to all the orders of years. For I know, and from henceforth will I declare it unto you, and it is not of my own devising. For the scroll lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the divisions of days is ordained, lest they forget the feasts of the covenant and walk according to the feast of the other nations after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon, hence having it. So every 3 years, that's how it kind of comes back into play.
So that's like the reason that they put a 13th month in, like
Yes.
every how many years?
Yes, because they have to make up for it. So for every 3 years, that's when they do it. So for 30 days, that's when every third year they add that 13th month, it seems, because then that gives them the 3 years, 10 days too short. It makes up for it.
Right.
Now
It's 7 times the 19 years.
Correct.
yeah,
And then
Yes.
there's another inner calculation that you have to do later on. But the basic inner calculation of that leap year is
correct. And then
7 times the 19 years. The other
Okay.
point I want to make is from Daniel.
okay, well, can I finish the reading? I'm almost done.
Sure.
Almost done.
Go
For
ahead.
this reason, the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order and make an abominable day a day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day. And they will confound all the days, the set apart with the unclean, and the unclean day with the set apart. For they will go wrong as to months, Shavuots, feasts, and jubilees. For this reason, I command and testify you that you may testify to them, for after your death your children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the heads of months and seasons and Shavuots and feasts, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. Now I'm done.
Well, that's reason enough for lunar people to get that out of there. Get that out of the canon. Same with Enoch. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is the reason I feel the lunar solar is correct is based on a number of observations using the 50-year Jubilee instead of the 49-year Jubilee, which is in the Book of Jubilees, which is why I feel the Book of Jubilees is wrong. If you look at Nehemiah chapter 2, there's the decree to rebuild Jerusalem.
Right.
That happened in 445 BC. If you look at my chart and the understanding of 50 Jubilees, you come up with the birth date from the 7 and 62 weeks of 440 years, 6 months and 9 days, which places Jesus' birth on the Day of Atonement in 5 BC. In 5 BC, there were 2 full moon eclipses on the Feast of Tabernacles and on unleavened bread. 5 days before each of those, one of those being Abib 10th, would have been the birth date of John the Baptist, because he was 6 months older than Jesus. Day of Atonement is on Tishri 10th, exactly 6 months later, on the Day of Atonement. From this observation, you get that Jesus was 30 years old in the year 26 AD. When he walked into Nazareth and read from Isaiah, which was a Jubilee statement and a declaration of a Jubilee, that was 27 AD. That marked time from creation. That day was 3,999 years. The Jewish calendar is off big time.
Yes, it is.
Okay? So what I'm saying from my observations, and then in 30 AD, he was crucified 3.5 years later from 26 AD. Luke records that he started at age 30. From that birth date, from these observations from Daniel, I understand the lunar solar correct. Oh, one more point about the Daniel.
All right.
And in Revelation, they talk about time, times, and half a time, or dividing the time, however it's recorded in each one of those. That records the years of the leap months. Time is the first leap month. Times is 2 years, not leap months. Then the fourth year would be a leap month. So that puts the 7-year tribulation, that puts the first, fourth, and seventh as having leap months. That makes that time period, each half, 1,284 days. That's why you have 1,290 days, because the 1,290th day is on the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles from the start. This is based totally on observations of the 50-year versus the 49-year and how I understand it. And that's why I believe the lunar solar is correct.
All right. I want to affirm something in that. Daniel was written about 160 BC. And we have to remember what calendar they were under in 160 BC, what calendar was in use primarily. This was after the Zadokites were kicked out of office. And when they
So how do you know Daniel's written in 160?
Because there are so many notices in there about the Antiochus Epiphanes and what was going on at that time. Yeah, it's like a lot of pseudepigraphs. It's written in the name of Daniel, and it's also a composite work. There are at least three different hands in there, and one of those hands is about 160. They would have been using the lunisolar calendar at that time. And am I saying this wrong when I say
Okay,
lunisolar?
I have a question. Why did you're throwing an argument out there that Daniel's not valid? And
Not at all. It is valid.
Okay. Well, I'm saying that Daniel wrote it back in 400, beyond 400.
Okay. Well, there's a difference of opinion there.
Right.
You got to look at it from a historical, critical perspective.
All right. There's another witness to that. How did the wise men know when to come?
I have a question. I have a statement. May I?
The wise men were Parthians. So it was their calendar they were using as well. Same calendar. Okay, go ahead, Norm.
Right, I'll stop. Y'all go on.
So, we like you. We like you.
Absolutely. You know, this is it. And this is what I found, and not just here, but in the past. When you do your calculations based upon a mindset that I have the truth, and you go by a particular system, then all your dates have to and will somehow miraculously fall in place. So it all depends on where you start and what system you're using. So if you use the solar, you come up with different dates. If you use the new moon, you come up with different dates. So we've heard this before. Just a year ago, Joseph Dumont, remember Jackson?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, where he was adamant that he had all the facts. So just keep that in mind. And I've heard this argument before. In fact, My previous, well, I still hang out with my previous guys, but I don't follow the calendar. But they follow exactly that same argument.
Very interesting.
And just to bring something up and not knocking anybody, just due to the statement of these, I mean, due to these words of this saying that I've heard, and I like it, and it says, the mark of an intelligent mind is one who can entertain the matter without accepting it. You know, detectives have to do that every day. So me starting as in the lunar solar, that's where I started 4 years ago. But as my investigations went on and comparing it and not just looking at it through those eyes, which I had a tendency to do at first, but then to say, okay, there's other gentlemen that know the scripture and believe exactly what I do. Why am I not seeing what they're seeing? So then I wanted to, okay, let me just set all my glasses aside and let me hear both sides and see where history leads and true documentation, translation, whether books are apocryphal, going by, scholarly notes these guys dedicate their lives to this stuff. So I throw them out completely and look at through a religious mindset, then I'm really not doing myself justice.
But you've got to admit that Mark fits the definition that you gave of intelligent man. If he was not, he wouldn't be here.
Exactly, and I love what he brought to the table because it gives great banter back and forth, so others can hear, because that answers a lot of questions. I want to know what somebody else believes. I'm still on a journey. I'm not done learning anything.
None of us are, especially on the calendar. Boy,
I know it all. That's why I'm so famous.
There's one thing I do like about the 364-day calendar.
Good. What is it?
Abib is always the barley harvest is always in the right week.
Well, maybe that's another proof of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying there is, from that point of view, that's always in the right week to have a barley harvest.
Good observation.
Good
observation. Mm-hmm.
Because
There are some groups that would disagree with you. They're not present here to speak up for themselves. So I won't go any farther. But there are some who go by whether everything's riper, and it looks to me like they're a month off. They're getting where they have shovel load in the springtime. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it's tied to the equinox, and that's what they do when they look for the barley. They're trying to hook it back to the equinox.
Yeah. If you didn't have the equinox, you would be 180 years. You would be celebrating the harvest, or you'd be celebrating planting in the middle of the winter.
Right.
Mm-hmm. If not for the equinox, or if you use a 364-day calendar, and you didn't, if you observed when the end of the year is instead of just the beginning, you'd have the same problem. Some call that intercalation. I just think it's a pretty wise method for doing it.
It's only at the end of this, it's only during that 6-year period do they intercalate one extra week after the equinox, after that Sunday. Otherwise, like you just said, you'll start drifting back into winter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As for the stuff that I have on the calendar, you can get it for yourself here if you want it, or if you go out to YouTube, I read these articles out there. And I want to thank you, whoever subscribed to my YouTube channel. I passed 1,000 today, which was a big landmark. Now we can start doing something with that we couldn't do before. All right, how are we doing? Everybody satisfied?
I will put my document together and I'll blow you guys all away. I've got it all.
Okay, so
a lot of people think you do, Norman.
All right, so 364 calendar, where are we at? What month, what day right now? And when's Yom Teruah coming up? Pretty quick, because like I said, I was on a version without having the knowledge of going to the first day of the week and then to the fourth day of the week to start. We were always starting from the equinox itself.
Well, Teruah is going to be about the 27th of September, something right in there.
No.
If Tabernacles is the 7th.
Yeah, here we go.
23rd of September. Yeah, it is Yom Teruah, 7th month. Tabernacles falls on the, where is it?
7th.
The 7th of October. There it is. Can you see it?
Yes, Norman. What day, what month are we in right now?
Right now, well, this is September.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's still the 6th month of the Enoch calendar.
Yes.
There's the 7th month coming up pretty soon. There's the 7th month.
Are you going to publish any more of those ever?
Well, I can't. I'm not going to print anymore because it's a lot of work.
Sure.
But I have compiled 6 years of them, and I'm going to be sending you all of them.
It's a printable form, though, isn't it? The PDF?
That's a PDF, and you
Yeah.
can print it and do what you like with it. Go to a printing house and get them to print big if you wish.
That's
Like
the
I did.
sturdiest calendar I've ever had.
Yeah.
Jackson, is it still available on your JS Presents?
What's that?
The calendar, that link, is it?
The printed
available?
one?
Yeah, with the packet, it looked like. I think I saw.
No, but you get a PDF of it, yes. But we're all out of the hardcover.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can run the PDF off, though, correct?
Yeah.
Sure. You can run it off your own printer at home.
Yes. I was just making sure that link was available for being able to get that PDF. PDF's fine. I mean,
Okay.
May I make a suggestion? I've added new notes from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Everything that I've got in the calendar falls in place with what the Dead Sea Scroll says, and the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch. Nothing what I say, because I'm not that smart. So I said, what does it say here? So I'm going to send Jackson by the weekend all the PDFs. And then hopefully Jackson will make that available as the current PDFs, and you go from there.
All right.
Hey Jackson, in the meantime, what's the full name of for the acronym MMT? If any of us are interested in looking at in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Mixat Ma'asa Hatorah. MIQSAT MAASE Ha Torah. Mixat Masa HaTorah. Now, I don't send that out with this pack, but if you want that, I've got several copies of it here. Yeah, it lays this out pretty clearly. I want to thank you all for coming. Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea to do this on YouTube Live maybe next week. I hope with the wonderful group here, everybody willing to chip in, I think we could do very well on YouTube Live. So I'll let you know. The other thing is that Richard put a notice up on the chat that if you want that latest calendar, then it's in the file section of the Think Tank Facebook group. Or of course you can contact me. If somebody else wants it as well, send me the contact and I'll either that or I think that the last one I sent out was not copy protected. So you can actually go ahead and pass that on, no password or anything.
Question. What's the Facebook group again? Is it Think Tank, one word, or two
It's
separate
called
words?
the Vero Yahad Think Tank.
So
You're in
it's got
there.
something else, it's got something else in front of the Think Tank.
Let me see. Yahad, Y-A-H-A-D. That's what it is. Just like it's on my screen right now.
So is Yahad Think Tank?
Yahad Think Tank.
All right, I'll look it up. Thank you.
I think you're in there already. Maybe
Ah,
not. I thought you were.
I'll take a look. I just don't remember seeing that one.
Okay, brother. Thank you all for coming. See you next time. We got another one coming up on Friday, by the way. Oni will be here to chip in. Ask any question. You know, if he doesn't have an answer, or I don't, he'll make one up. Okay. Bye-bye.